Broken Family Part 4. Lisa had never felt truly at home. Ever since her parents' divorce, her father's disappearance had left her feeling abandoned. But one day, everything changed when her father reappeared, unannounced, to visit her and her brother. They hadn't seen him in years. Lisa's heart raced with conflicting emotions, a glimmer of hope mixed with fear of what this visit might bring. Her grandfather welcomed the reunion, appreciating the courage it took for her father to return after all this time. But her grandmother was furious. Years of anger and resentment boiled over as she accused Lisa's father of abandoning his children. With venom in her words, she threw him out, declaring he had no right to disrupt their lives after all the neglect. A fierce debate ensued, but eventually, Lisa's father managed to convince both grandparents to let him take Lisa and her brother home with him. It wasn't easy, but the prospect of leaving their grandmother's house was too appealing. Life under her rule had been harsh, and Lisa was eager for a change. But the relief was short-lived. When they arrived at her father's house, Lisa was introduced to a new reality. Her father had remarried a widow with 3 children of her own. What should have been a fresh start quickly turned into another nightmare. Lisa's stepmother and her children didn't like her or her brother. They were treated as outsiders, forced to do harder chores than they had ever done at their grandmother's. Lisa's father, once the symbol of hope, remained passive. He saw how poorly they were treated but said nothing. On the 5th day, Lisa's brother fell ill. Instead of caring for him, her stepmother sent him back to their grandmother's house. Lisa was heartbroken, but her father convinced her to stay. He told her he loved her, promised things would get better, and that he needed her to be strong. Afraid and with no other choice, Lisa agreed, despite the pit forming in her stomach. Things only worsened. Lisa's stepsister, bitter and spiteful, slandered her, accusing her of terrible things. This enraged her father, who, without hearing Lisa's side of the story, sent her back to her grandmother's house. Lisa cried the entire way, realizing her father, whom she had so longed to be with, had turned his back on her once again. From that day on, her father disappeared from her life, never looking for her or her brother again. Life with her grandmother was as cruel as ever. The little warmth and hope Lisa had were gone, replaced with the familiar coldness of neglect and abuse. At the age of 13, Lisa's grandmother forced her into something unimaginable, sending her to work in the Middle East as a domestic worker. Lisa was far too young, but with the help of a placement agent, her age was falsified, and soon, she was shipped off to a foreign land, alone and scared. Lisa's life in the Middle East was no better than the one she left behind. Her employers had a large, luxurious home, hosting grand parties while Lisa toiled away. She worked from 6 in the morning until 2 at night, with no breaks. Her body ached, her spirit wore thin. One day, she was tasked with scrubbing the entire living room carpet on her hands and knees, using a manual brush. The room was so vast, and the work so grueling, that by the end of it, her knees were raw and bleeding. She could barely stand from the pain, but there was no rest for Lisa. Her employers treated her as less than human. They took her to stay at a relative's house one night, and instead of a room, they made her sleep in a goat pen. No bed, no blankets, just cold and humiliation. Despite all her suffering, Lisa never saw a single cent of her earnings. Her grandmother had arranged for all of Lisa's wages to be sent directly to her, leaving Lisa with nothing but her pain and isolation. To be continue.